What if I told you the very thing you treat as harmless, your late-night ritual, your so-called stress relief, is the exact reason you feel weaker, slower, and less respected every single day? Sounds extreme? It isn't, because the truth is your greatest enemy is not outside, it's in your own hands. And until you face that, every dream you carry will stay out of reach. Picture this. Men who built empires, Caesar, Napoleon, even the princes Machiavelli studied, did not waste their fire on private indulgence. They redirected it. They weaponized it. Meanwhile, most men today are drained before they even step into battle. Their energy, gone. Their discipline, sold. Their presence, invisible. And yet they wonder why no one fears them, why no one respects them. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Every time you give in, you're trading power for 5 seconds of emptiness. You're selling your future for a flicker of fantasy. And the people who profit from your weakness, they want you exactly this way. Addicted, predictable, harmless. In this video, I'm not here to moralize. I'm here to expose, to show you why Machiavelli would call your private habit the greatest trap of your generation. To reveal how restraint turns into presence, how denial turns into dominance, and how mastering your urge is the first step to mastering your life. So now the question is simple. Will you rule your desires, or will your desires continue to rule you? Before we begin, quickly drop a comment telling us which country you're watching this video from, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, because your support is what keeps this voice alive. What if I told you that your greatest weakness isn't out there? It's in your hands, not because of morality, not because of religion, but because of power. Real, hard power. You've been led to believe it's harmless, natural, even healthy. You've been told that indulging in your pleasure is some form of liberation. But let me ask you, who benefits from that belief? Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. A man who cannot control his most basic urges is a man who cannot control anything. Not his time, not his energy, not his destiny. Niccolò Machiavelli, the father of realpolitik, once observed that those in power do not fear the immoral man. They fear the disciplined man. The man who denies himself because that man cannot be manipulated. He is unpredictable. He is dangerous. Now ask yourself, how dangerous are you? You see, this habit, this small private ritual, it's not just a personal vice, it's a political weapon used against you. It saps your will, it weakens your instincts, it drains the very force that makes you command respect. And the people in power, they don't need chains to control you, they just need you. Addicted, distracted, empty. What if I told you that the pleasure you chase is the prison you built? What if the constant indulgence you call normal is precisely what keeps you weak, tired, and easily led? Machiavelli didn't write for the soft-hearted. He wrote for those who would rule, or be ruled, and what he would say about this habit would shake you to your core. Stick with me, because once you understand the truth, you will never look at this habit the same way again. In The Prince, Machiavelli warned that softness in a ruler is the death of his reign. He didn't mean physical softness, he meant the erosion of the will, the decay that happens when a man chooses comfort over command, indulgence over influence, and nothing erodes a man faster than unchecked pleasure. Let's be clear, masturbation is not just a moment of release, it is a ritual of surrender. It teaches your brain that the slightest discomfort, boredom, or stress must be met with instant reward. It trains you to obey your urges, not to master them. And once your urges rule you, you're no longer a man, you're a puppet. Predictable, programmable, pacified. The algorithm knows it. That's why your feed is saturated with skin, fantasy, dopamine traps. Because when your pleasure is predictable, your behavior becomes predictable. Machiavelli would not see this as coincidence. He would see it as design. A prince, he argued, must learn to act against compassion, against humanity, even against morality, when necessity demands it. But a man who is addicted to comfort cannot make ruthless choices. He hesitates. He falters. He's too afraid of withdrawal, of silence, of facing his own emptiness. Pleasure makes men passive. Passive men make obedient citizens. And obedient citizens are useful to those who rule. Now ask yourself, how much of your strength have you traded for 5 seconds of chemical reward? You think it's private, that no one sees. But power doesn't need to see your actions. It only needs to see your patterns. And the man who spends his nights draining his life force into a glowing screen, he is not feared. He is not respected. He is not free. Pleasure, once your ally, becomes your master. This is not about shame. This is about strategy. Because the world doesn't reward the most entertained, it rewards the most disciplined. And right now, whether you admit it or not, your enemy is not external. It's internal. It lives in the habits you defend, the escapes you justify, the comforts you cling to. Machiavelli believed that power is preserved by discipline and lost through indulgence, that the man who cannot command himself will never command others. So ask yourself, do you lead or do you obey? Because every time you choose this habit, you answer that question. Let's abandon the illusion of innocence for a moment. Do you really believe your addictions exist in a vacuum? That your nightly ritual of release has no consequences beyond your bedroom? Machiavelli taught us that in every society there are those who rule and those who are ruled, and the distance between the two is measured not just by wealth or weapons, but by clarity of mind. A distracted man is not a dangerous man. He cannot strategize, he cannot revolt, he cannot rise. Now understand this. Your pleasure has political utility. The more time you spend chasing digital fantasies, the less time you spend building yourself into a threat. You think you're alone, but you're exactly where they want you, sedated, silent, predictable. Pornography is not merely entertainment, it is sedation. The endless stream of instant gratification you consume is not freedom, it's programming. And what does it program you to do? Obey your desires, obey your screen, obey your weakness. Machiavelli would call this a stroke of genius by the ruling class. Because why use force when you can give the masses the illusion of choice while binding them with chains of comfort? What need is there for oppression when the people are too addicted to resist? Every empire understands this. The Romans knew it. Give them bread and circus and they will never riot. Today's bread is dopamine. Today's circus lives in your pocket. This is not conspiracy. This is design. The fewer strong men there are, the less competition for power. The more self-indulgent you become, the more predictable you are. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to market to, manipulate, and control. Your pleasure is profitable for someone else. But you pay in time. You pay in energy. You pay in potential. Every indulgence is a transaction where you trade your future for a flicker of fantasy. And this is the ultimate irony. What you thought was harmless was strategic. What you thought was pleasure was submission. You were not born to be ruled by your urges. You were not born to be pacified. But as long as your discipline is for sale, your power belongs to someone else. Machiavelli would not pity you, he would warn you. If you do not master yourself, someone else will. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli laid bare a cold truth. Power is not for the kind-hearted. It is for the calculating, for the man who sees human nature not as noble, but as something to be ruled. And to rule it, you must first rule yourself. Machiavelli warned that a prince must avoid being overly generous, overly merciful, or overly indulgent, because these traits, while praised by the public, are the very ones that destroy a ruler from within. Now ask yourself, if a ruler must avoid indulgence, how much more dangerous is indulgence to the ruled? A man who cannot resist temptation becomes a man who cannot be trusted with responsibility. He will sell his crown for comfort. He will betray his principles for pleasure. He will collapse at the first sign of internal war. Machiavelli did not write about masturbation, but he did write about the consequences of unchecked desire. He spoke of rulers who fell because they failed to appear disciplined, because their people lost respect for them, not due to military defeats but due to personal weakness. Reputation, he said, was everything, and a ruler who allowed his desires to become public, who let his indulgences define him, was finished. Now let's bring this to you. Would Machiavelli see you as a prince or a peasant? A prince controls his appetites. A peasant is consumed by them. A prince uses perception as a weapon. A peasant is transparent, readable, easily manipulated. A prince calculates. A peasant reacts. Think of history's fallen leaders, not by war but by scandal. Affairs, addictions, secrets leaked into the light. When a man is owned by his appetites, he becomes vulnerable to those who know it. Pleasure creates leverage, And power, Machiavelli taught us, is the art of eliminating vulnerability. So when you indulge in private, thinking it's harmless, remember this: even private weakness becomes public failure. The habits you hide eventually shape the man the world sees. Machiavelli believed that fortune favors the bold, but only when boldness is guided by discipline. He wrote not for the moral man, but for the effective one, the man who doesn't just survive, but dominates. So again, ask yourself, are you the one pulling the strings of your own life? Or have you been trained, through routine, through desire, through habit, to be ruled? Every weakness, if understood correctly, can be weaponized. Machiavelli taught that the prince must not only protect his strength, he must disguise his weakness and, when possible, transform it into power. And in you lies an untapped arsenal of energy you waste daily without ever realizing its true value. Sexual energy is not shameful. It is not evil. It is raw power, biological, psychological, spiritual. And right now, you are handing it away for nothing. But here's the Machiavellian shift. What if you could redirect that energy, not suppress it? What if every time you resisted the urge, you weren't losing pleasure? You were gaining fire? This is the strategy of transmutation, the process of taking the most primal energy within you and converting it into drive, focus, and ambition. Not to become moral, not to become pure, but to become dangerous. Consider Napoleon Bonaparte. He didn't conquer Europe by chasing comfort. He was known for his intense discipline, often going days without even thinking of carnal desires because his obsession was not with pleasure, it was with power. Or Julius Caesar. Machiavelli admired him not just for his political genius, but for his ability to subjugate personal indulgence in favor of public legacy. These men were not saints. They were strategists, and they understood this. A man who indulges is predictable, but a man who redirects his hunger, becomes unstoppable. Now apply this to your life. Every time you feel the urge, it is a signal, not to give in, but to use it. That fire you feel, it's a spark of life, capable of fueling empires. Channel it into your work, into your training, into your leadership. While other men collapse into their screens, surrendering their strength for digital illusions, you will rise, sharper, colder, more focused. This is the art of self-rule. This is what separates the ruler from the ruled, because when you master your energy, you become immune to manipulation. You become harder to read, harder to stop, and in a world full of men who obey every impulse, your restraint becomes your advantage. Machiavelli would not ask you to become a monk. He would ask you to become calculating, to take what enslaves other men and turn it into fuel. That is the strategy of power, and only those who master it will ever be remembered. What happens when you stop? Not just once, not for a week, but truly stop. Rejecting the cheap rewards, refusing to be governed by urges, silencing the itch that once dictated your every move. You don't just become disciplined, you become formidable. Your eyes sharpen, your posture shifts, your voice deepens. Not in tone, but in conviction. Because now you're no longer chasing dopamine, you're directing it. You're not reacting, you're orchestrating. This is not fantasy, this is biology. When you withhold pleasure, your dopamine receptors reset. Your brain, once addicted to quick hits, begins to crave real achievement. Focus heightens. Decision-making becomes clearer. You stop thinking like a victim and start thinking like a ruler. And the world, it notices. Others feel it before you say a word. There's a weight to your presence, an edge to your gaze. Not arrogance, but a quiet dominance. Because now, you've done what most men cannot. You've ruled yourself. And here's the Machiavellian truth. Fear and respect begin there, not with wealth, not with appearance, but with restraint. A man who has no leash on his desires cannot be trusted, not by others and certainly not by himself. But a man who can command himself is feared, even in silence. That's the transformation. You become unpredictable, unshakable, unmovable, not because you suppress your fire, but because you control its direction. And in a world ruled by men who obey their screens, their cravings, their comforts, you become the exception. The one who watches while others crumble. The one who acts while others hesitate. The one who wins while others watch. Machiavelli would not only respect this man, he would trust him with a kingdom. Now the question is no longer vague. It's not philosophical. It's personal. Will you rule your desires or will they continue to rule you? Will you live as a man of impulse, owned by habit, chasing shadows of pleasure that leave you emptier with every hit? Or will you rise as Machiavelli's prince would, ruthless with weakness, merciless with comfort, loyal only to ambition? History remembers only those who chose mastery over mediocrity, and right now you're standing at that line. You can walk away, laugh this off, and return to the cycle. You'll be just another name in a crowd of men who could have. Or you can decide, today, that your discipline will no longer be optional, that your life will no longer be ruled by urges, by screens, by softness. The world doesn't need more pleasure seekers, it needs more rulers. So subscribe, not for entertainment, but for empire. Because the journey to self-mastery doesn't end here. It starts now. Right now, there are 2 videos on your screen, handpicked just for you. Click to watch them. I'm sure you'll love every second.